And you see the course there in the city of Ras Al Khaimah, with the athletes ploughing around this route, and the big lead built up by Deriba Merga of Ethiopia, ahead of a quartet of top Kenyans there in the background, who have all broken 60 minutes for the half marathon distance. And that, as I say, is very much the limit of the benchmark of world-class half marathon running, and yet this man is slaughtering this field. It's a staggering performance. Merga then has gone through 10 kilometers in 27:31. He's way ahead of world record schedule. It's too fast, quite frankly. Anybody can see that. And on this section, he's running slightly downhill. There's a very slight slope here, so he'll accelerate further. And this man has gone through 10,000 meters, 10 kilometers, much, much faster than anybody in history for that stage of a half marathon. Here's that quartet of top Kenyans. And they're 34 seconds behind at 10 kilometers, this quartet. And we're looking here at number 5, John Kiprotich, and number 7, Leonard Langat, number 8, Bernard Kipyego, and number 9, Titus Masai. And there, there's the man who's won this race twice. He's 48 seconds behind, is Patrick Macau. He's having a really bad day at the office. Well, one lady who's having a very good day is almost concealed there in the background. Tiny Mary Kaitani. Her official pacemaker is number 14 there. That is Simon Tonui, himself a world-class athlete, slightly past his sell-by date now perhaps. He's a lovely fellow, is Simon, the Kenyan who spends a lot of the year in the UK, and here doing a very good job, and so experienced as a pacemaker for this world record attack for Mary Kaitani, who has herself laid down a tempo here way inside the world record. In fact, Kaitani needs to go through 10 kilometers in 31:20, and she's way ahead of that schedule. Under 31 minutes at 10 kilometers there for Mary Kaitani. In fact, her 10 kilometer time is 30 minutes 45 seconds. And she's got a big lead too, Kaitani. She's at 10 kilometers, well, over a minute ahead of second place Dire Tune, the winner of this race 2 years ago. Good to see so many spectators on the route too in this 5th edition of the RAK Half Marathon. The first couple of years they were few and far between, but it really is building up ahead of steam, this race, as year after year it attracts more and more attention in the world of road running all over the planet. Well, of course, the relay runners have to change every 5 kilometers or so and pass over that timing chip to their teammates, and that's how it's done. Quick ripping off of the Velcro tie and onto the ankle of the new outgoing runner. This is the route, though, over towards the eastern section of the course, where it's about 14.5 kilometers. They have to negotiate a U-turn, the athletes and the athletes in the relay as well. But this man, well, Deriba Merga has been on fire so far, but I was talking to him yesterday and said, look, you know, you have this reputation of going out too fast and dying in the latter stages. Can you not just hold yourself back a little bit? And he said, no, I just love to lead. And he obviously didn't listen to a word I said, and this is the result. He's beginning to slow a little bit. There's no doubt about that. He's beginning slow a little bit. The kilometre splits over the last 2 or 3 kilometres have been creeping upwards. And you can see in the background there the quartet, who are gradually, very gradually closing on him now as they've passed halfway in this half marathon. Well, you can hear that the enthusiasm of the spectators is almost getting them onto the road and causing an obstacle for these runners. But Deriba Merga, well, he lives on his own in a big apartment in Addis Ababa, the Ethiopian capital. Comes from Wolega, 350 kilometers out of the city. But all the top Ethiopian athletes are based in Addis Ababa, as are most of these Kenyan athletes based in either Eldoret or E10, the 2 big running capitals of the Rift Valley nation, Kenya. Well, these 4 gents, I have to tell you, must be shell-shocked, because Deriba Merga has torn them apart over these first 12 or 13 kilometers. And you can see number 8 there, Bernard Kipyego. He's the 11th fastest man in history, and yet he just cannot make any serious inroads into the lead that Deriba Merga has built up. He's trying to push the pace here, not getting any help from the men behind him. Titus Masai there, number 9, obviously absolutely flat out. He was 3rd in this race last year, Masai. He might well end up in that position again today. And it would take a dramatic reduction in form from Murga out in front to actually be caught, I think, by any of this quartet. But an impressive effort here from Bernard Kipyego to try and close on Murga. They're certainly not chatting to each other, which is sometimes the case for these Kenyans when they're more relaxed. But here we see Deribe Murga going through 15 kilometres, and he's put so much pressure on those Kenyans that I don't think they're in the mood for chatting to each other about tactics at all. 41.45 there at 15 kilometres for Deribe Murga. One of the quickest times ever for 15 kilometres. And he's, wait for it, around 50 seconds in front of that chasing quartet. He's still got almost a minute lead with 3/4 of the distance gone, more or less. Now, of course, 2 years ago, he set a 15-kilometre world record here in Ras Al Khaimah, and then over the final 6 kilometres, actually really suffered and was caught by a couple of athletes and finished in 3rd place. So he finished his day with a world record to his name, but only in 3rd place. Can you believe it? Because, of course, the timing positions at intermediate points on this course mean that you can set world records at different points before you get to the finish line. Here, though, Mary Kaitani, her mind is very much set on the world record for the half marathon. She's already set a world best at 8 kilometres, quite a long time ago now, because here we see Kaitani way past halfway. And in fact, Kaitani heading here towards the 15-kilometre point. Simon Tonui working hard there. Very heavy he looks, doesn't he? He's probably twice the weight of Tani Kaitani, who is coached by an Italian. When she's back home in Kenya, she spends her time in Iten. Her coach is Gabriele Nicola, a relatively young Italian who's very, very knowledgeable. Does a great job with Kaitani and a big squad of top Kenyan female runners who are world-class athletes. They spend their time training away hard, doing over 100 miles a week in training up in the Rift Valley, and then they shoot off to the USA or to Europe or indeed to United Arab Emirates for these attacks at records and looking to win the big races. Still looks nice and relaxed, doesn't she? And I have to say, Tanui doing a very good job here for Mary Kaitani in this world record attempt. Her last hard training session was on Monday. She did 24 times 1 minute at a very hard pace with a 1 minute rest, a 1 minute jog recovery, she said to me. And that sets her up nicely for this sort of record attempt. She comes from Baringo originally, about 200 kilometres north of Nairobi. But of course, these athletes born and brought up at altitude, many of them, the Kenyans in particular, run many kilometres to school from a young age and run home again. You may have heard this before, and some people say it's a bit of a cliche, but it's actually fact. The majority of these Kenyan and Ethiopian athletes are running several miles a day from the age of 5, 6 or 7. And so, of course, as we see Kaitani, they're going through 15 kilometres. They are virtually running machines by the time they're in their mid-teens. Kaitani there, 46.40 at 15 kilometres. Well, that's not a world record for Kaitani, but it is one of the quickest times in history. And certainly, she looks to be on her way towards a world record, does Mary Kaitani. Here's the chasing group. As you can see, they are a long way down. In fact, about 2 minutes down as they go through 15 kilometres. Kaitani isn't thinking about them at all. They're right out of her mind. That's Dire Tune and Hilda Kibet and Mare Dibaba, that chasing group. She's thinking about the record. And of course, she has the London Marathon coming up in 8 weeks' time. That her big spring target. Well, she's past three-quarter distance now, and Mary Kaitani just needs to maintain this tempo to get that world record. And I tell you what, it looks like she might break it by some margin. Deribe Murga in this 5th edition of the Ras Al Khaimah Half Marathon has built up a big lead mid-race, and although he's tiring on that slight uphill section towards 18 kilometers and then the penultimate straight before the left turn into the finish straight, he's got a cushion behind him which is gradually being whittled down by a quartet of Kenyans. I don't think he's going to be caught, but the world record is slipping out of his hands now as he's in this final quarter of the race. His tempo, his leg cadence has certainly slowed to some degree. It's a lonely section, this one, tough too. It's the only slight uphill climb in the entire race. For the most part, this circuit in Ras Al Khaimah is very flat, hence the quick times over the years. But if he can hang on, he'll be the first non-Kenyan winner in the history of the race. There he goes through 18 kilometers. With the wall of the palace grounds over on the far side of the road, other runners heading down towards that eastern section of the course and the U-turn. He's ploughing up this side and now takes his final right-hand turn into the straight leading towards 19 kilometers. But he knows he's slowed a little bit, there's no doubt about that, and there's a quartet of top Kenyans behind him, and he's worried, isn't he? Little glance over his shoulder there, just to check that they're not closing too quickly, and another. Well, this is the battle for the minor places. Number 8 there, looking strong. And there's Kipyego. Behind him, number 7, is Kiprotich, and Faleke is there as well. But these four who were running together, working together through the middle section of the race, I think the gloves have come off there now in their own private little battle. There's Faleke, wearing number 3, Ghetto Faleke, who was the winner of the Amsterdam Marathon last autumn. He ran 2:05 there, 2 hours and 5 minutes. That's the measure of this field. The strength in depth is quite staggering, and yet Dariba Merga has destroyed them with his running over the first 3 quarters of the race. There's the 2-time champion Patrick Macau. He's in heavy training for the London Marathon, and back in, 5th or 6th place there, Macau. He looks to be really struggling, frankly. Well, Merga there on this long straight can see now the gap behind him, and it is closing slightly. You can see top right of picture the chasing Kenyans, but they are about 300 yards down, 300 meters down. The gap is about 45 seconds, so he's got a pretty safe margin as long as he doesn't slow too dramatically. Well, he was hanging on to those cones there in the middle of the road, not running the tangent, but here he goes through 20 kilometers. And Merga there at 20 kilometers on 56.16. He's a little way outside the world record. He has certainly slowed through this last 3 or 4 miles, but he's got a good margin. 2 behind him here, number 10 Dixon Marwa and a 15 Marugu Terefe. Making his debut, Terefe, there in the orange vest and having a very strong run, I have to say. But these two are down in, I think, 7th and 8th places at the moment, working hard together. That's always useful when you've got somebody beside you and you can share the effort psychologically at least. There is no wind in Ras Al Khaimah this morning. There was a slight breeze at the start of the race nearly an hour ago, but now it's eased right back. And as the sun climbs, he takes the final left-hand turn, does Dariba Merga, and another long glance there over to his left to see his pursuers. And the good news for him is that the gap is still very big indeed. It's around 250 meters there, about 35 seconds down, and he can see the finish now, almost exactly 1 kilometer in front of him. He's got about 2.5 minutes of hard running to go in this finishing straight. There you can see in the background the Kenyans making the turn. Bernard Kipyego in 2nd place, Leonard Langat in 3rd place. But they've left it a little bit too late. They're going to run out of road, I'm sure. The question now is how much closer to Dariba Merga can they get? And can he push on hard to get well under the hour for the full distance? In all the previous 4 editions of this race, the 1 hour barrier has been broken in the men's contest. Well, here he comes towards the line then, Dariba Merga, and looking very strong indeed. In the background, the Kenyans have certainly closed. Bernard Kipyego has closed without any doubt about that, but here comes Dariba Murga, third here twice in the past. He's going to be champion today. What a run it's been. Totally dominant run from the 28-year-old. And he's a winner at last on the streets of Ras Al Khaimah. Here comes the second placer, and it is indeed Bernard Kipyego. Around 59.45 there unofficially as he crosses the line. And in third place it's Leonard Langat coming home there. 1, 2, 3. But it's a win for Ethiopia in the men's race.
My feel is very nice in this year. Last year in Nigeria, no good feel. My feel in this time, my feel is very nice.
Well, the tracksuits are on and the interview's done in the men's race, but just a few minutes further back down the road, Mary Kaitani is pushing on hard with her attack on a world record. I can confirm that Dariba Murga set a world best at 8 kilometers very early on in the men's race. That's how quick he was going in the first half, although it was his undoing in terms of record attempts in the second half. But he has the victory under his belt, and surely this lady now has the victory under her belt. It's just her against the clock. Still looking strong, deep in concentration there with Simon Tonui, who has done a wonderful job through these last 17, 18 kilometers. She now pushing on towards the 20-kilometer point herself. She already has herself, as did Murga, a world best at 8 kilometers under her belt, a world best at 10 miles. She went through 10 miles in 50 minutes and 5 seconds, way quicker than the previous world best. And this was very much on the cards from Mary Kaitani. Her coach, Gabriele Nicola, a young Italian, and her Kenyan coach as well, Joseph Cheremai, have done a wonderful job in preparing her and getting